Okay, welcome back to the second part of our video discussion for chapter 2. Now we will be talking about the eukaryotic cell structure and function because there are also microorganisms that are composed of several cells or multicellular microorganisms. Now, for your eukaryotic cell, coming from the word eu meaning true and karyo meaning nucleus, it contains a true nucleus bounded by a nuclear membrane or envelope. So yan yung pinaka-unique characteristic of your eukaryotic cell. Okay, it contains a true nucleus. And maliban sa true nucleus natin, your eukaryotic cell also contains other membrane-bound organelles. Okay? So, mas marami siyang structure inside compared to your eukaryotes. Now, your eukaryotic cells are generally quite a bit bigger than prokaryotic cells. Okay? Because what? It has other bounded organelles inside. So, let's expect na mas malaki yung size niya. It is more complex compared to your prokaryotic cells. Now, typically larger, okay, than prokaryotes, and they include your algae, protozoa, fungi, all your plants and animal cells, including those that make up the human body. So humans are considered as eukaryotes, okay, eukaryotic organisms. Now, there are many types of eukaryotic cells that have projections that are used for cellular locomotion and for moving substances along the surface of the cell. So, meron tayong eukaryotic cells that also has the flagella, okay, that are also found in your prokaryotes. And then, your eukaryotic cells, instead of a pili, okay, instead doon sa pili nila and fimbriae from your prokaryotic cells, the one found in eukaryotic cells is the cilia, okay? So, yung cilia natin, yan yung equivalent ng pili sa prokaryotic cells. Okay? So, some of the eukaryotic cells, merong flagella, pwedeng few, and long projections, okay? And then they also have the cilia, which are numerous and short, resembling hair. So, diba, para rin siyang pili and fimbriae. Now, example of the organisms or the eukaryotic organisms or the eukaryotes containing flagella and cilia is your euglenoid algae and your protozoans, okay? Again, we consider algae, protozoans, and fungi as eukaryotes. Now, when you say euglenoid algae, we are talking about euglena. Okay? Euglena yan siya. Now, when you say euglena class, this is a single-cell flagellate eukaryote, meaning your euglena is a type of algae that contains one flagella. Okay, so your euglena, this is found in freshwater and salt water. Okay, so ang ginagamit ng euglena for locomotion is flagellum. Yan, so flagella yung ginagamit niya for moving, no, from one area to another. So since algae siya, sa tubig siya nakikita, freshwater and saltwater. And then another one that contains cilia naman is your protozoans. They utilize cilia for locomotion. Now, Diba doon sa ating prokaryotes, ang flagella for locomotion, ang pili for attachment. Dito sa ating eukaryotic cells, the cilia is not for attachment but also used for locomotion or Ayan, locomotion nga, for movement, okay? So, eukaryotic cell wall is considerably simpler than that of a prokaryotic cell. Why? Your eukaryotic cell wall, diba? It does not contain what? Peptidoglycan. Okay? So, wala siyang peptidoglycan. Okay, what's next? We have the... Ayan. So, let's take up the composition of the different cell walls of your algae, your fungi, your yeast, and protozoans. Now, for the composition of the cell wall of most algae, it consists of polysaccharide cellulose. Okay, so polysaccharide again, sugar. Okay, talking about sugar. So, your cellulose class, this is an important component of mostly all green plants found on Earth. Okay, lahat ng tanim or plants na makikita mo dito sa Earth are composed of your polysaccharide cellulose. They are the significant structural component of the primary cell wall of green plants. But they are also, your cellulose can also be found in the cell wall of certain algae. Okay? So, besides plant, makikita mo rin yung cellulose sa cell wall ng algae. Second one, you have the cell wall of your fungi. So, yung para sa fungi natin, it is composed of the polysaccharide, chitin or chitin. Okay? So, when you say chitin or chitin, this is a fibrous substance forming major constituent of the cell wall of the fungi. Okay? So, pinagkaiba niya doon sa cellulose, fibrous naman ito siya. Okay? Your chitin is a fibrous substance. So, ang chitin, this is actually, very significant or specific for the fungi. So, nakikita lang siya sa cell wall ng fungi. Okay? Next, you have the cell wall of your yeast. So, may dalawang components yung cell wall ng yeast natin. We have the polysaccharides glucan and mannan. So, saan nanggaling ang glucan? It's the origin of the glucan is your D-glucose. Okay? It originated from D-glucose. And then your mannan naman is a polymer of your mannose, sugar. Okay? So, ang glucan coming from the sugar, glucose, and ang mannan galing from it came from the sugar, mannose. So, I think you're very familiar with your glucose and mannose. Tapos yun naman yung biochem. Okay, let's move on with protozoans. So, your protozoans class do not have a typical cell wall. Instead, they have a flexible outer covering called pellicle. So, pinagkaiba nitong protozoans with your algae, fungi, and yeast is that it does not contain a cell wall. Rather, it contains your pellicle, a flexible outer covering. Now, this is a thin layer membrane that supports the cell membrane of your protozoans. Okay? So, hindi matigas. Diba? Ang cell wall natin is rigid, semi-rigid. While sa protozoans, yung kanilang outer covering is flexible and you call that as pellicle. Okay, eukaryotic cell wall do not contain peptidoglycan. This is significant medically because your antibiotics such as your penicillin and cephalosporins act against peptidoglycan. Therefore, they do not affect human eukaryotic cells. Now, okay, so since your eukaryotic cells class, wala silang peptidoglycan. Yung peptidoglycan kasi ang target ng antibiotics, 'di ba? So if the cell does not contain peptidoglycan on its cell wall, the antibiotics will not attack the eukaryotic cell. Kasi nga wala naman siyang cell wall containing peptidoglycan. So, when you're taking antibiotics or medicine such as antibiotics, hindi naapektuhan yung normal cells ng katawan. Okay, it only attacks the bacteria found inside the intestine, for example, because it only attacks cells containing peptidoglycan. Okay? So what are these samples ng antibiotics natin? We have number 1, the penicillin. Okay, yung penicillin natin, class, is the very first antibiotic that was discovered by Alexander Fleming. Okay, si Alexander Fleming ang nakagawa ng pinakaunang antibiotic medicine. Okay, so saan nanggaling yung penicillin? Nanggaling siya sa Penicillium mold. Okay, yung bacteria natin, the microorganism where your penicillin was gathered from is the Penicillium mold, or Penicillium, and then mold, you have molds. Okay? So your penicillin, class, this is given to patients with infection caused by bacteria. Okay? Ang penicillin natin, it is a medicine for bacterial infection. Example natin ng mga bacterial infection, you have the pneumonia. Okay? You have the meningitis. You also have the syphilis, okay? And your gonorrhea. So yan yung mga nagagamot ng penicillin. Next example, you have the cephalosporins. Okay, when you say cephalosporins, this is a huge group of antibiotics. Hindi lang ito isang antibiotic class. It is actually a large group of antibiotics that originated from the mold which you call Acremonium, or what you call the Cephalosporium. Okay, itong mga antibiotic na tinatawag nating cephalosporins, they are gathered from the microorganism or the mold which you call Cephalosporium. Okay? So your cephalosporin antibiotics, they are actually bactericidal. Okay? Bactericidal. Bactericidal. Okay? When you say bactericidal, this means they kill bacteria. Specifically, bacteria lang yung pinapatay nila. Okay? And they work in similar way as the penicillin. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Let's move on. Let's go to the membrane-bound organelles found inside the eukaryotic cell. No? This class, hindi na ito kailangan ng maraming explanation. Nakuha nyo na ito simula pa nung high school. So your eukaryotic cell, it contains the nucleus, which contains also the chromosomes, okay, genetic material. It also contains your ER, okay, and the plasmic reticulum, which is a transport network. Okay, and then it also contains your Golgi bodies or the Golgi complex. Okay, may lysosome din siya, which contains digestive enzymes. Your vacuole, especially in your plant cells, diba? Meron silang vacuole for storage of water. And then mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, it produces energy to be used by the cell. Then you also have for plants, chloroplasts, which are used for photosynthesis, and peroxisome for oxidation of fatty acids. And it also destroys your hydrogen peroxide, which is a harmful chemical. Okay, next. Let's go to the microbial classification and nomenclature. Naming. How do you name your microorganisms? Okay, hindi ko pala na-include, no, yung picture ng ating the table containing on page 37 plus sa course pack ninyo. On page 37, we have the table containing the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So I will just read, you just follow. Okay, number 1, characteristic pertaining to size. So, syempre, mas smaller yung prokaryotic cells kaysa sa eukaryotic cells. So, tingnan niyo yung size nila, the difference. 0.2 to 2 micrometer in diameter ang ating prokaryotic cells. And then, larger ang eukaryotic cells kasi ang size niya is 10 to 100 micrometers in diameter. I will try to paste the picture here. Okay, wait a second. Okay, class. So, ayan. I've attached the picture or the scan copy. Okay, so let's go to nucleus. Your prokaryotic cells does not have the nucleus, rather, it contains the nucleoid. Okay, may true nucleus naman ang ating eukaryotic cell. Okay? And then, membrane and closed organelles absent sa prokaryotes, present sa ating eukaryotic cell. Flagella, so in prokaryotic cells, consists of 2 protein building blocks, while in eukaryotic, mas complex sila. They consist of multiple microtubules. In phagocytosis, so there's no activity such as phagocytosis para sa prokaryotic cells, while some eukaryotic cells carry on phagocytosis. Glycocalyx, present in prokaryotes, diba, as capsule or slime layer, but in eukaryotes, wala silang glycocalyx. Okay? In cell wall, so usually, present ang peptidoglycan in prokaryotic cells, while in eukaryotic cells, kapag present yung cell wall, wala pa rin silang peptidoglycan. Okay? So, not all eukaryotic cells contains a cell wall. Next, plasma membrane. No carbohydrates for prokaryotes. Almost all lack sterols. When you say sterols, class is a type of steroid. Okay? So, lipid. It is a lipid. While in eukaryotic cells, sterols and carbohydrates incorporated. Cytoplasm. So, in the cytoplasm of your prokaryotic cells, wala silang cytoskeleton. Again, your cytoskeletons are just supporting materials, okay? They maintain the shape and internal organization of your eukaryotic cells. So, merong cytoskeleton for the eukaryotic cells. Ribosomes, on the other hand, smaller ang size nila in your prokaryotic cells compared to your eukaryotic cells. Chromosome arrangement in prokaryotic cells, singular chromosome, walang histone, while in eukaryotic cell, multiple linear chromosomes with histone. In cell division, binary fission ang gamit na division for prokaryotes, while in eukaryotes, mitosis. And in sexual reproduction, okay, ang ginagamit for prokaryote is hindi meiosis, but the transfer of DNA fragment. Anong tawag doon? Conjugation. Okay? Conjugation ang sexual reproduction for prokaryotes, while in eukaryotes, meiosis. Okay? So, those are the general differences between your prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Now, let's go to microbial classification and nomenclature. When you say nomenclature, this is the system of naming organisms, okay? Naming microorganisms tayo. Okay, so the scientific nomenclature is based on the binomial or two-name system. When you say binomial, two-name system siya. So, itong scientific nomenclature class, ito na rin siya ang scientific name, okay? So, ang scientific name natin is classified as binomial nomenclature, meaning it uses two different names, okay? So, bi meaning two, nom meaning name, and clature meaning process. So, two-name process We are producing scientific names following a two-way process. So this method, sino ang nakapag-develop? We have Carolus or Carl Linnaeus. He developed this during the 17th century, specifically 1735. Okay. So Latinized yung ating binomial nomenclature, the scientific name, because noong panahon, yung scholars natin, Latin yung ginagamit nila na language. Okay? So parang ano na lang siya, carry on na lang siya until now. Okay. So your scientific name or your scientific nomenclature is Latinized and italicized. Okay? Or underline. So, if hindi siya naka-italic, katulad nito, dapat, ang ginagawa dyan, if walang italic, dapat underline siya. Okay? For example, ito, Panthera leo, the scientific name for your lion. So, since italicized ito, wala nang underline sa baba. Pero, if you're using the normal lettering na, for example, pinasulat ka, you will need to use underlining. Okay? Underline mo sa baba ang Panthera and hiwalay para for leo. Okay? So, each organism given two names, genus and specific epithet, or yung specific epithet natin class, same lang yan with species, okay? Both used in written text. Okay, so the binomial nomenclature is composed of two names, the genus and the species. You combine that one to produce the scientific name. So, dito sa sample natin, scientific name ng lion, so always nauuna class, okay? In a binomial naming, the genus will always be the first one, followed by the species. Okay, so genus niya is Panthera, followed by your Leo, which is the species. Okay? So the starting letter for the genus must always be capitalized class, okay? Dapat always capitalize yung pinakaunang letter ng genus name natin. Okay? And your genus is classified as the general name. Equivalent yan sa surname. For example, tayo, ang name ko is Kyle Millicent Quintero. Yung Quintero, yan yung genus. It is the general name, okay? Your last name, your surname. While the specific epithet, yung inyong species, this is in lowercase, okay? Hindi siya, walang capital letter sa species. Lahat siya nasa lowercase. And this is classified as the specific name of the organism. Okay? This is equivalent to your first name. So, Kyle Millicent Quintero, the Kyle Millicent is the specific name. It is the species. Okay? So, ano lang yan ha, comparing lang yan para may idea kayo. So, ano yung rule natin? Ang binomial nomenclature dapat composed of two names. First, the genus followed by the species. Okay? It should be written italicized, or if hindi naka-italicized, dapat may underline sa baba per word. Ang underline niya hindi dapat continuous. Okay? Dapat may space. And then, the genus must always start in a capital letter, while the species must always start in a lower case. Okay? So, yan. In written text, by custom, the name is spelled out completely on the first use, and every other following use, the genus must be or may be abbreviated. So, for example, you're writing an essay, you're writing a paragraph. Kapag una mong ginamit, first time na ginamit mo yung scientific name, you shall spell out the whole genus and species. Okay? Now, if nabanggit mo siya ng pangalawang beses na doon sa paragraph mo, pwedeng i-shorten mo na lang siya. So, for example, you have Staphylococcus aureus and Escherichia coli are found in the human body. S. aureus is on skin, and E. coli is found the large intestine. Diba? So, ano na lang, abbreviation na lang para doon sa genus na Staphylococcus. Don't forget to write the period, okay? S. period aureus. And then, E. period coli. Don't forget the period class. That's very important, okay? So that is the rule in using your scientific name in writing. Occasionally, a third name is introduced after the specific epithet or the species, and this is called your subspecies. Okay? So, pwede ka pang magdagdag. Pwede ka pang magdagdag ng pangatlong name, okay, doon sa binomial name mo. You call that as subspecies, and it is equivalent to the certain breed of an animal, okay, the variety or type of a certain plant, and the strain of a certain virus or bacteria. Okay? Okay, your scientific names may describe an organism, honor a researcher, identify the habitat of the species, and sometimes derive from the name of the place associated with the discovery of the organism. Ito yung possible class. Itong apat na highlight ko dito in different colors, these are the possible reasons for the production of the origin of the scientific name. Pwede kang gagawa ng isang scientific name that is describing the appearance of the organism. You can also produce or make a scientific name that is honoring the researcher, meaning ginagamit mo yung pangalan nung nakadiscover sa kanya. Okay? The scientist that discovered the organism. You can also make a scientific name identifying the habitat of the species. Okay, saan siya nakatira. And lastly, you can derive the scientific name from the name of the place kung saan siya na-discover. Okay? For example, you have here Escherichia coli. This is the generic name or the genus. This is the specific epithet or the species. So, italicize ito. So, walang underline. Hindi pwedeng dalawa na italicize na siya tapos in-underline mo pa klasa. That is not correct. Choose one between the two. Okay, example. We have the Staphylococcus aureus. This is a bacteria commonly found in the human skin. So, may Staphylococcus ka sa skin mo. By the way, class, Staphylococcus aureus is a type of bacteria that can cause acne or pimple, okay, or kati-kati sa katawan. Okay? So, Staphylo describes the clustered arrangement of the cell. So, ito yung ginagamit niya yung description in order to name the microorganism. The coccus naman in Staphylococcus means or this indicates the cells are shaped or spear-shaped. Round shape siya. Diba? Do you remember the cocci? Round shape. So, Staphylococcus meaning organism or microorganism that has the shape of a sphere. And then lastly, the aureus is the specific epithet, is the Latin for golden, okay, the color of the bacterial colonies. Because your Staphylococcus class, kapag you place it under or pinalaki mo siya sa pure culture, ang color niya is golden or golden yellow. Okay, so napakaganda ng color niya. I have a classmate before, ang thesis niya is finding an antibiotic plant. Okay? So, tinest niya yung Staphylococcus and Escherichia coli. Ano ba yung makakapatay dyan? Certain type of plant. So, after niya ginawa yung thesis niya, nagkaroon siya ng maraming pimples because maybe the contact, no, hindi masyadong maganda yung sanitation. So, her test samples, the Staphylococcus in her pure culture, baka na-touch niya somehow and napunta sa face. Okay, so one example natin ng bacteria that causes pimples. Next, you have Escherichia coli, yung genus name niya, coming from its coming from the scientist that discovered your Escherichia coli, si Fyodor Escherichia. Okay? So, kaya Escherichia galing sa name ni Fyodor, sa surname niya. And then specific epithet niya, coli. This reminds us that E. coli lived in the colon or the large intestine. Coli meaning colon. Okay, so that is few ways on how to make your scientific name. Okay, next. Okay, let's go to classifying. We are done with the naming or the nomenclature. Let's go to classifying your microorganisms. Okay, so noong unang panahon class, ang pinakaunang classification natin is 5 lang. Okay, we only have 5 kingdoms. Okay, so the first one is the Monera, second one is the Protista, next followed by the fungi, the plantae, and the Animalia. So, dito sa Monera, it contains the kingdom for your prokaryotic cell. So, inisa niya na, dito sa 5 kingdom, inisa niya na yung kingdom ng bacteria and kingdom ng archaebacteria. So, inisa niya lang yung prokaryotic cells. Kasi, diba, we have 2 types of prokaryotic organisms, bacteria and archaea. So, inisa niya na dito sa Monera. And then, kingdom Protista for our protozoans, kingdom fungi for our fungi, and then kingdom plantae for plants, and kingdom animalia for animals. So, sino who is the one who devised this? His name was Robert Whittaker, okay? So, he devised the 5 kingdom classification system in 1969 based on cellular organization and nutritional patterns of organism. When you say nutritional pattern, paano yung kanilang mode of nutrition? How do they get their nutrition? Okay? However, many scientists now consider yung classification ni Whittaker as outdated, luma na. Kasi dito sa kanya, inisa niya lang ang archaebacteria and ang bacteria, which is should not be, no? Hindi siya dapat kasi nga malaki yung difference between your bacteria and your archaea. So gumawa ng bago. Now, we have the 3 domains. When you say domain class, this is dito naka-classify yung different kingdoms natin. We first have the domain, followed by the kingdom, and so on. So, gumawa ng 3 domains. The first one is the archaea, originally the archaebacteria, followed by the domain bacteria, okay, originally the eubacteria, meaning this is the bacteria that has the peptidoglycan in the cell, and the archaebacteria, the ones that do not the peptidoglycan in their cell wall. Lastly, we have the domain eukarya. Okay, so 3 domain yung ginawang bago. Now, the first 2 domains, the bacteria, include only prokaryotes, diba? Hiniwalay dito. The domain archaea contains the kingdom for archaebacteria, which is a prokaryote. Now, the domain bacteria contains the kingdom for bacteria or kingdom bacteria, which contains the eubacteria or the true bacteria, which is also a prokaryote. And then, domain eukarya, it now contains the 4 kingdoms. Sinama-sama na dito the kingdom of protist, the kingdom of fungi, the kingdom of plantae, and animalia. So, bakit mas maraming domain itong prokaryotes natin compared sa eukaryotes? Yung eukaryotes natin, kinompress lang sila sa isang domain, eukarya. Pero yung sa prokaryote, hiniwalay ang kanilang domain. Why? Because again, there is a big difference between your archaea and bacteria that you won't be able to include them in just one domain. Hindi sila pwedeng ipaghalo sa isang domain kasi napakalaki ng difference nila. Although they are the same, pareho silang prokaryote. Okay? So, let's proceed. Okay, by the way, class, this is Robert Harding Whittaker. Ayan siya. So, ito yung picture ng kanyang 5 domains, 5 kingdom domain. 5 kingdom system. Okay? We have the plants, we have the animals, we have the fungi, and then we have the protists, we have the monera. Now, this is the one naman produced by Carl Weiss. Okay? So, si Carl, siya yung nag-produce ng classification including the 3 domains. This is Carl, and this is his phylogenetic tree of life. Okay? Ito yung na-invent niya. You have the domain bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. And then under that, ito yung mga organisms. Okay? So, let's try to know what are the 3 different domains of organisms developed by Carl Weiss. Okay? So, number 1, we have the archaea. So, the domain archaea, it is characterized by cell wall, if present, do not have peptidoglycan. Wala rin siyang true nucleus. So, yan yung pinagkaiba ng archaea mo sa bacteria. It does not contain the peptidoglycan and it does not have a true nucleus. Now, the kingdom Archaebacteria, prokaryotic, unicellular siya, meaning isa lang ang cell. Organisms under your kingdom Archaebacteria. The organisms under the Archaebacteria or kingdom Archaebacteria might be, pwede silang autotrophs, pwede rin silang heterotroph. Or autotrophic and heterotrophic. Now, what's the difference between the two? When you say autotrophic, class, these are organisms that are able to produce their own food. Okay? They can produce their own food using what? The water, carbon dioxide, using other chemicals. So, ito sila yung mga plant-like. Okay? They are the producers because they can produce their own food coming from water, light, and carbon dioxide. So, producers ang autotrophs or autotrophic organisms. On the other hand, when you say heterotrophs or heterotrophic organisms, they can produce their own food. That's why they take nutrition from other sources, okay, by eating other types of organisms. Okay, for example, you have the animals, okay. So you call your heterotrophic organisms as consumers. As humans, we consider ourselves as consumers or heterotrophic because we eat other organisms in order to get food or nutrient to sustain life. Okay? So, under dito sa kingdom Archaebacteria, ang mga organisms are prokaryotic, unicellular, and pwede trophic and heterotrophic. The organisms under this usually live in harsh environments. For example, environment na walang oxygen. Okay? Oxygen-free, aerobic. Very hot or acidic environment or very salty environment. Okay, so nakuha ba natin yan, class? Your Archaebacteria is the organisms which we call extremophiles. Ito sila ang Archaebacteria or the archaea are the organisms that live in harsh and extreme environment. So you call them as what? You call them as extremophiles. Ito na sila. Okay, so chemically different from other bacteria because their cell wall do not contain peptidoglycan. Okay, so yan yung ating kingdom Archaebacteria. And domain archaea. Next, let's go to the domain bacteria. So, sa domain bacteria, it contains the peptidoglycan in its cell wall and it does not have the true nucleus. So under the domain bacteria, meron tayong kingdom Eubacteria, meaning kingdom of true bacteria. Okay? So the organisms under this are prokaryotic and unicellular, and the same with your Archaea kingdom or Archaebacteria kingdom, autotrophic or heterotrophic din sila. Okay? So true bacteria sila because they can be found everywhere. Okay? So makikita mo sila kahit saan. Yun yung ating kingdom Eubacteria. And then finally we have the kingdom Eukarya. So dito na tayo nabilong. I mean domain Eukarya. We are under the domain Eukarya. So meron tayong true membrane bound nucleus. So under the Eukarya we have 4 types of kingdom. Number 1, the kingdom Protista. Okay? The kingdom Protista, this is where your protozoans belong. Okay? So example niya, you have the slime molds, the protozoans, and the algae. Next, you have the fungi, kingdom fungi, which contains the yeast, the molds, and the mushroom. This one. And Eukarya, domain Eukarya also contains the kingdom Plantae, which basically contains all of the types of plants, no? Like mosses, ferns, conifers, and your flowering plants. And then lastly, the most important part, you have the kingdom Animalia. Okay? Which contains your sponges, your worms, your insects, and your vertebrae. Now, the human is under the vertebrae because we have a vertebral column, yan, vertebraes. Okay? Animals which contain vertebral column or has the vertebral column. So, ayan, the Eukarya containing 4 kingdoms. So, all in all, class, ilan ang kingdom natin? We have a total of 6 kingdom. So, compared to the 5 kingdom system na ginawa ni Whittaker, the new type of classification has 6 types of kingdom. 5 lang kasi yung kay Whittaker, di ba? Monera, Protista, Animalia, Plantae. Okay, and ano pa yung isa? You have the fungi. Okay, you have the Monera, the Protista, the fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. While in the one that produced by Carl, Anim, you have the kingdom Archaebacteria, the kingdom Eubacteria, the kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. Okay, so that ends the topic for chapter 2. Now, for the closing of this video, I have a question. So, I think tapos na. Natanong ko na pala kanina. Okay, so that's the end, class. I hope that you've learned something from this. This is the end of the discussion. You just read the further reading part, okay? Maybe some of the questions might be coming from the further reading. So, basahin nyo lang siya. Okay? And thank you for watching. I hope that you're taking down notes. Notes are very important, especially when studying. And that's all, class. See you again next time. We will just know if I will be conducting more of the video discussions. If you just tell me in our Google Meet if ano ba yung mas prefer ninyo. Video discussion, like I will just upload the video, or sometimes Google Meet. Okay, so thank you for watching and I hope you study well. Bye!